Hello everyone, and welcome back to Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are looking at a ship, and this ship's annoying me. Because this is not the USS Vallejo. Now, let's start with the pronunciation. This, depending if you pronounce it in English, I think it's Vallejo. If you pronounce it in Spanish, it'd be Vallejo. But we're going to go with the English pronunciation, so the Vallejo. This is not it. This is CL-146. At least it claims to be. But to my understanding, CL-146 was a Worcester-class light cruiser. This is very much not a Worcester-class light cruiser. This is a design draft of a Worcester-class light cruiser from quite a while back. In fact, according to Wargaming from 1941, and I have actually located the design draft in the archives. So this was one of the earlier cruiser designs when they were still trying to make up their mind sort of what to build next. And this particular draft, Draft D, was from the light cruiser rapid firing dual purpose gun series, was meant to sacrifice one of the gun turrets. As you can notice, she only has 5 for an additional deck armor. So this was supposed to be a somewhat better armored, but somewhat lighter armed variant. This variant didn't, in fact, get chosen. Now, the actual CL-146, the USS Vallejo, was laid down in 1945 as a Worcester-class light cruiser, which this isn't. And was then not built because, well, they only built 2 of them, and that they themselves then stayed on for the Korean War and were eventually mothballed and removed. But this one isn't, to my understanding, the USS Vallejo. This is a different ship. So why? Unless I missed something completely, because it did say here a project variant that preceded the creation of the Worcester-class cruisers. And yes, this wasn't actually built, but the USS Vallejo did exist as CL-146, and she was a Worcester class. So why we're not getting a premium Worcester at tier 10? That would have been fun. Anyway, let's take a look at this thing. I'm not sure if she's out yet or she is coming out. I'm losing track of what happens when here, because there's so much new stuff coming in. But this is a tier 9 premium light cruiser. And it was announced, I think, in the 6.3 update as an American. And given the name, I thought maybe South American. But no, it turns out it is a US Navy light cruiser. So the typical Super Atlanta, Super Juno sort of design. Although, like I said, only with 5 guns, the 5 twins. Only the C turret and the X turrets are super firing. A and B are flat down, and she has a couple of ship skills. Well, she has one ship skill that I think we haven't seen yet, unless I missed it. So let's start comparing her to the USS Worcester, which is obviously a tier 10 tech tree AA defense platform in the game. The Vallejo gets a rapid takeoff scout plane. So this thing's only got a 20-second cooldown and gives us a 12% range increase. In return, she doesn't get a sonar, and her radar is a bit weaker, and she only gets 2 defensive AA. She only the two charges of the defensive AA skill. From the hull, she's a bit squishier than a Worcester, but that's okay. The very, very interesting stat here is the turn time. 9.6 seconds. That is a lot for a light cruiser. The Worcesters were sort of built as, again, Super Atlantas or Super Junos with dedicated destroyer maneuverability. And the Vallejo certainly does not have that. She only gets 10 guns instead of 12. And obviously they're not quite as good as the Worcesters, but they're quite close. The AA, interestingly enough, is the same setup. So you do get the extreme range small caliber AA at tier 9. So this is a bit of an AA monster. because this is a tier 9. She gets into tier 8 games, whereas the Worcester does not. The concealment is also better than at the Worcester, but all this at the price of an almost 10-second base turn time. Now, if we compare her to the tier 9 tech tree, the Seattle, then again we do have the tier 10 defensive AA. So the difference between Air Defense Alert 3 and 2 is that 3 gives you a 200% boost on a small caliber AA. So this is a complete AA monster for her tier. And I wouldn't be surprised if she actually has best in tier AA, but I would have to double check, haven't looked. And obviously she does get the worst radar. So the difference being Seattle's radar has an 8.1 kilometer range and Vallejo's radar only a 7.2. So that's a kilometer less on the radar and no sonar either, which makes going after destroyers potentially a little tricky because you're not going to see the torpedoes coming. Especially because you only have 2 charges of the Def AA, so you are going to need to take battlefield support, which means you can't take the torpedo spotting skill at tier 2 on the captain skills. She's got the Seattle hull pretty much, but the Seattle has a significantly better maneuverability than this thing. And while the Seattle gets 12 guns, the Vallejo only gets 10. We've talked about that, but they are, at least on the high explosive, slightly better, but it's not a huge difference. So it's sort of an undergun Seattle with better AA and worse maneuverability, because the Seattle does not get the extreme range that the Worcester and in return the Vallejo gets on the small caliber AA, which is the one that does get the significant boost of 200%. So the 3 kilometer range here make all the difference. The concealment is pretty good, 8.5 kilometers. We did mention that. So what can we do with this thing? You do get the choice between, I'd call it the solo player build and the division player build. So if you're playing solo, you probably want to go for the guns because you don't even have secondaries on these things. These 150s are all you have. Now, they are very good, but they're also all you have. You can take the AA specialization, and that is what I would call the team player build or the division player build. When you do a full-on AA spec build, or as much as possible AA spec build, and division up with a carrier, because that'll guarantee that you get into carrier games. And especially if you division this thing up with a tier 8 carrier, that, like Friesland style, that would be pretty toxic, I would call it, because you have Worcester level of AA on this darn thing. And you could do a full AA build if you were so inclined. The equipment choices, you can... So for the regular, we'll go with the regular build here. You could... I think you can take both. I've gone with the main battery mod 2 because she does only get 10 guns. And the dispersion is a bit meh, but the main battery mod 3 on its own is not really going to fix it. So I opted for just throwing more stuff at the wall and see what sticks. You absolutely, positively, definitely want the steering gear mod 2, as much as it pains, because you could do this on concealment. Again, if you're building it for AA, I would probably that's a harsh one. I'd probably skimp on the range here, but unless you just want to stay back and defend things. And you could go double steering on this one. I have gone for the propulsion mod just because you need all the stopping and starting power that you can possibly get on this with that maneuverability. So with that setup, we are, and yes, actually the camouflage, let's look at that as well. So historical camo, or you can't see it, but I'm making big air quotes with my fingers here. Let's call it the historical camouflage for confusion's sake. Gives us hit points, main battery range, a large caliber AA range, which is okay, but the small caliber would be better, and torpedo damage reduction, which nobody gives a crap about. You can get the aptly named Freedom America camouflage if you want to stick a honking big eagle and a flag on the side of your ship, and that actually gives you dispersion. dispersion, traverse, range, and hit points. So for a solo player, or like just if you wanted to go into randoms, if you don't mind the ship looking like this, basically looking like a giant bird's nest, then this is probably the better choice here, because really nobody cares about the torpedo damage reduction. The large caliber AA range is nice, but it's not a game changer. And this one gives you both hit points, range, and dispersion. So you could actually use this, combine it with the main battery mod 3 for significantly improved dispersion, and the traverse speed is much appreciated for a ship that has relatively poor base turn time. Anyhow, with the historical camouflage, we are getting the turn time down to just over 8 seconds, which isn't great, but is not terrible. And we get the reload down to 4.6 seconds, which is what I was going for here with the full-on reload build. Because these 150s get the 5% fire chance at this point, and the rest is all the same. So, commander-wise, I have actually done this both with, again, usual review stuff. We've got one captain here for a normal build, and I have put Kincaid in here. You do want the battlefield support. I mean, with Kincaid, it's a no-brainer because it gives you both the air defense alert and an extra radar, which is nice. But this ship is not quite the destroyer hunter that the others are, because she does lack the sonar, so you do have to be somewhat careful. But the radar certainly comes in handy if need be. But you do sort of want this for the extra air defense alert, because you only get 2, and I generally consider 3 the minimum, and 4 is where I'm comfortable at. Which means you can't take the torpedo alert, which would have improved the detection range of enemy torpedoes. So you do need, and you have a relatively poor turn time. So you do need to be real careful with these things when going after destroyers. The air defense expert is a no-brainer, and the rest, given that there's an awful lot going on, is pretty standard as well. I have used the High Alert Plus here just because it's Kincaid. Otherwise, I would have gone for the artillery maintenance. And again here, I've used the General List Plus because it's Kincaid. Otherwise, I would have gone for Exploit Weakness. On the main line, you'll probably be having the Recon skill. Extinguisher is a decent choice here. And obviously Demo Expert because there's nothing else. Compartment maintenance for a dedicated AA ship is not a terrible idea. Although you could argue that carriers are probably going to have a hard time even just getting at you. But I'm having that more here for the Destroyer Hunter role. So if you are faced with especially European destroyers and you do need to go after them and you don't have the sonar, this is maybe not a bad skill to have. On a regular captain, I would go APCS, but because it's Kincaid, I've got the IFHE. It doesn't make a huge difference because the HE penetration isn't the greatest, and these are only 150s. So this isn't going to make a difference. It just feels wrong to not use it. But on a non-legendary captain, I would normally go with the APCS skill here. And then obviously Horizontal Protection Expert, because that's the only thing that makes sense. So you will be seeing 2 games in the not USS Vallejo. One in the regular setup with the standard consumables, and one in the premium setup with the expensive consumables and with the legendary commander. So let's see how bad the lack of maneuverability really is, and how well she holds up, or how well she can hold herself up in a game, and if this ship makes sense as a general purpose play ship. The first round is a tier 10 game, and we are playing Domination on Typhoon's Eye against Malta, Black Republic, Duncan, Iowa, Goliath, and an Ibuki. No destroyers in here, so that makes our life potentially a little bit easier, because Destroyer Hunter is not quite what we are. This is a bit of an artillery ship because of the scout plane gimmick that allows her to operate from a bit further range than, say, a Worcester, and somewhat compensates for the lack of maneuverability that you have. So I'm going to head towards D-Cup and give obviously AA cover. There is a Shimakaze of our own, but at this point I notice that our team is abandoning B. So the carrier is going over to the western side of the map, and the Shimakaze is the only one going to B. That's a Baltimore, and that Freddy is completely abandoning the side because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be he doesn't want to take on the carrier. So that's why I'm heading over here. So maybe I can help the Shimakaze and give some AA cover, because the Freddy is getting under carrier attack anyway. So def AA up. We can't defend the Freddy because the carrier came the long way around, but we can certainly make him pay for it, because that's this is basically a Worcester, and that's what happens when you're in a carrier and you're flying over a Worcester. You're not getting your planes back. So, but when we obviously spotted, there's a Baltimore, and this is about as far as we want to go because there's a lot of big guns over there. But first we need to get that Baltimore out of the way. Although, yeah, there's a Duncan and 2 battleships. And a Goliath and 2 battleships. Well, sort of battleships. That means we do need to make ourselves scarce here. I am trying to get behind the island, but obviously the bot is keeping me spotted over there, and already having to pop the first heal. This is about as close as I want to get. Let's get some fire set on the Duncan. He's merrily burning, and now we start working on the Goliath while also giving a AA support. And we can even reach the Iowa. Goliath is on fire. He's not Damaconing this, so I'm going to start on the Iowa. We have burnt down the Duncan. And I am in a defensive position, but obviously with these sort of big guns shooting at you, we do need to make ourselves scarce here. There's way too much opposition. We did get a fire. The Malta is spotted briefly, but I do need to get behind the island now because I've taken way too much damage. And I'm the only one holding down this complete flank here. There's nobody else except the carrier. So it's up to the 2 of us to hold that flank, and I'm just tickling the Malta a little bit, just to put a little bit of pressure on him, and maybe get him to make a mistake or not pay attention to his planes or anything like that. But fortunately, he is leaving me alone at this point, because he could have taken me out relatively easily. And something set me on fire. That must have been the Goliath over there. And there's a full health Iowa coming around the corner, and there's not an awful lot I can do about this because I cannot really play around the island because of the Goliath, which is sitting around somewhere near A cup. So now all I can do is bow in and try to dodge as much as possible, and hope that the Iowa doesn't have the greatest aim in the world, and that seems to be the case. So carrier, come in, help. I'm setting a fire, and no Damacon yet. He's waiting out for the torpedoes. Torpedoes haven't caused a flood. Now he Damacons. But yes, because of the Goliath coming down this way as well, the only thing I can do here is to try and angle against both of them, time the shots from the Iowa as much as possible. And he's got 1 permafire. I'm just going to try and set permafires. But you see the dispersion also is really not great. That's 2 permafires. Now he should be reloaded about now. Yep, there he comes, and mostly missed, or it went into the belt. So we can swing around again, and I'm just backing off, trying to not be killed by the Goliath in the meantime. Iowa is having another threat now, so he is again now on permafires. And there comes the Goliath. He's fortunately firing high explosive at me. Oh no, the Iowa's noticed me. Oh crap, that's gonna be it. Nope, I actually survive. And there is Goliath, but he's well out of my radar range. We've got the Iowa dead. Over to the armor piercing, but yeah, no chance to get out of that one. Was trying to get behind the island there, but we did what we could, and we held down a complete flank in a bottom tier light cruiser. So it's typical American support cruiser play while the carrier wipes out that Goliath there. It's typical American support cruiser play. We've taken down 2 battleships and basically held B Cup for as long as we possibly could with the help of the carrier, and made ourselves useful. Unfortunately, the enemy carrier has very quickly realized that it's a terrible idea to fly over my ship, but is now dead. I don't know who took him out, but I think it was the Bourgogne, because he was somewhere in the middle, because the Shimakaze was sailing the long way around. So yeah, we've done our job. We haven't done an awful lot of damage, but we've done our job here, and generally, If I had a chance, if somebody had held this flank, or had supported on this flank, I could have been more proactive in air defense. But as it stands, there wasn't an awful lot I was able to do here, except for that one flyover, which has cost the carrier 7 planes, and very, very quickly tells him that this is something he should not be doing. But yeah, we're just waiting. We're just waiting for the team to kill the Ibuki. Shimakaze is actually in a gunfight with Ibuki, and the friendly carrier is just using the fighters to keep Ibuki spotted at this point, and to make sure that he doesn't go undetected. But yeah, it's not gonna be very long anymore. So, what do you have in this ship when you're in a tier 10 game? Well, you basically got a Worcester. It's got two turrets. 2 fewer turrets, and that should be the end. Yeah, it's got 2 fewer turrets. Sorry, 1 fewer turret, two fewer guns than Worcester, and a slightly longer reload. But it's a tier 9 adjusted Worcester. It's got an interesting gimmick with the scout planes, and it definitely has the same AA as you have in tier 10. So well done Haku and Bourgogne, but I think we've done our job here. Which brings us to the second battle. This is with the legendary captain, fully upgraded, and with the premium consumables. It is a tier 9 battle, so we're up against tier 8 things at this point. Although the carrier is an Essex, so a fellow tier 9, Lyon, Iowa, Vanguard, a Seattle, a Harlem, and an Albemarle. No destroyers at all. But it's very unusual to see this many cruisers around. But it is a domination battle on Sea of Fortune. Maybe there is like a mission or something that requires cruisers to be played. But let's go and see how that ends up. And let's see who I'm spawning with here and see where I can make myself useful the best. Because you do need to compensate for the fact that this thing does not have the greatest maneuverability. I am spawning with Ibuki. Ibuki has terrible AA, so I'm going to help the Ibuki and create a no-fly zone around A-Cup. And then we'll see where the carrier is going. And Ibuki should be stealthy enough that he can take on A-Cup by himself, if necessary. And maybe I can reorient myself towards the middle and just deliver some AA support, depending where the carrier is going. It looks like right now he's just striking straight through the middle, no flank scout. And one of the battleships is actually coming around here to support. So we'll see how it goes. But I do have actually a relatively good concealment with 8.5 kilometers. It's just that you're not going to do a concealment build on this ship. But given that no one seems to be coming around so far. Okay, there's a battleship. But that thing I can outspot. No one's coming around so far. And I do have the radar to counter any potential smoke screens. And we should be able to... Let's get the island between myself and the Lion, and let's see if someone else is here. Yep, we're not alone. And there's a Seattle. Okay, there's a Vanguard as well. Okay, and there's the Harlem. Okay, the Harlem was the one spotting me, I think. So I think we need to back off. And the carrier is coming... Oh, no, this isn't the carrier. This is the Harlem coming around. But with the Def AA up, I can shoot a couple of those planes down. So that's one job that I have here, and it's quite funny that even with a tier 10 AA, I can only shoot 4 of the airstrike things down. Okay, Vanguard just Damacon the Flood. So again, I'm in reverse, and my team's kind of focusing here. But that the positive effect of this is that the carrier is going to come in as well, and we can make ourselves useful here and take down this carrier airstrike, and see if we can get some permafires going on that Vanguard over there, who is sailing away. But that's not so much of an issue on this ship. Well, it would be on a Seattle or on a Worcester. You do have this scout plane, which allows you to temporarily shoot over 12 kilometers, which is pretty nice. And while we're holding the capture circle, there's no real reason for me to get any closer than that. Instead, I'm just going to help Ibuki out and keep shooting down Harlem airstrikes as much as possible. And there comes another one. And yeah, we're just making ourselves useful. Harlem, I think, is now inching into... Yeah, Harlem is in the capture circle. So just radar up to keep him spotted, because he was going undetected there for a sec. And I'm going to switch over to AP and get the scout plane up and see if I can lob shots over this island. It looks like I can't. But it also looks like there are 2 battleships now pushing. So Harlem needs to back off, which is going to give me a chance to sink some shots into that thing. Because, yeah, now he's poking out. But the AP is okay. I was expecting more against the Harlem. But there comes the airstrike in. And the Lion comes around the corner, and the Seattle is shooting at me as well. So I do need to back off here and try to set fires. The team calls out Lion. Lion Damacons single fire. This makes sense. He's on low hit points. But he's coming under fire from Vanguard, Bismarck, myself. And there's also an Iowa now coming in. And the Harlem really needs to die. So let's get that thing out of the way. From this range, even these shells can't really do, can't really miss, or can't really bounce. So back to the HE, and I'm gonna try. I've got the hit points probably to take a salvo from the Vanguard. I am gonna try and get myself turned around here, make sure that we're capping, and then try to help out there with catching with burning the Iowa down, while disengaging and getting the island between myself and the rest. Vanguard is firing HE at me, which is much appreciated. AP would have been significantly worse, but let's get a couple shots out. We should be able to get this Vanguard killed. He's getting out of range. A carrier is coming in as well. That Vanguard should be dead by all intents and purposes. Yeah, Ibuki has taken him out actually. That leaves the Iowa over here, and he is now on fire. He insta-damacon on a single fire, but he is coming under heavy fire now. So I think he's going to melt away relatively quickly, despite being a top-tier battleship. And then that just leaves, I think, the carrier and one of the cruisers. The Seattle's over there, so that's the only thing I haven't seen in this game yet. Was I think it was a Goliath? No, couldn't have been a Goliath. Don't know, something. Drake, maybe? It was something British, I think. So the Iowa's taken out the Bismarck, but he's on super low health, so... And the Vanguard on our team is on full hit points. He's going to get him killed. No problem. And that leaves the Seattle. We can deal with that thing as well. And the team is calling out the carrier. It's asking the carrier to move over to spot the enemy carrier, because they might have angles on it. So he is trying to get some fighter planes over there, but so far hasn't really spotted. Nope. We've actually just lost whatever it was that was potentially having angles. So we're 3-on-3, and we're only leading because of the capture circle. So this isn't decided yet. So that Seattle needs to die. I have the friendly Vanguard, who's still got all his hit points, but is completely out of the rest of the game, because there's a minute of the game left, and he's at the absolute eastern edge of the map. So let's try to shoot some planes down and make ourselves useful, because the carrier is ignoring me. Make ourselves useful against the Seattle. I have one scout plane left, and that should be sufficient to get that Seattle killed, because there is I see that carrier, and there's also that British cruiser next to me. So Vanguard's taken that out. The Albemarle it was. Albemarle is the bigger threat at this point. So I do need to slow down here and make sure that I get the turn on this side of the island, because he's on full hit points, and that's a heavy cruiser. And if he loads the armor piercing as he did, then and yeah, there come the torpedoes. Then that's a problem. But I have the radar, so him smoking up isn't going to help him. And heavy cruiser by name, he is, but heavy cruiser by nature, only at the guns. So these things should be relatively squishy that I can use the armor piercing at this range. And again, just torpedoes coming out, don't have a sonar, and I do need to, yeah, ow. If I let him do that a couple more times, then that might have spelled doom. But we do have a still our carrier, so even if I was to go down, which I didn't, that would have been a game. So, pretty tactical struggle, but that's where American light cruisers excel, and that's also where this thing excels. So, if you are willing to trade poor maneuverability, the lack of sonar, and one gun turret for Worcester level AA at tier 9, so in tier 8 games, and the long-range scout plane capabilities that you otherwise don't necessarily enjoy, and if you're then that's absolutely a valid ship. And if you are a a support cruiser player, if you enjoy the support cruiser role, this is actually an excellent ship for that purpose. Because if you don't mind staying back with and helping your team, getting yourself into harm's way when it comes to aircraft, and just generally be a good teammate and a good support ship, then this is absolutely a ship that's valid to be played. And I think it is reasonably balanced as well. We can't have enough AA, and its firepower is reasonably well balanced for Tier 9, that it doesn't completely overpower Tier 8 ships. And it's quite versatile, which for a light cruiser is always something that's something that I like seeing. So there you go, the not USS Vallejo at Tier 9, CL-146, which she isn't, but in some regards she is when it comes to AA and similar things. And now you know. And that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.